again. All right, we'll learn the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments is what is being read in Israel and outside of Israel also on the first day. Outside of Israel, on the second day of Shavuot, there's another reading. Ready, everyone? Vayedaber Elokim es kol hadavarim ha'elu lemor. God said all of these words lemor. This is the introductory sentence before the Ten Commandments. All right, let's go to sentence number 2. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am God that took you out of Egypt. All right, so let's look at this introductory sentence. Vayedaber Elokim, that Elokim said all of these words. Ein Elokim Elodin. Why does it say that the name, God has a lot of different names, and each name of God shows on a different aspect of God. So sometimes the aspect of severity, it says that we receive the Torah mipi hagvura, from the Almighty. One of the name of God is the Almighty. The name of God Almighty that more or less refers to this name of God in Hebrew called Elokim. Okay, Vayedaber Elokim es kol hadavarim ha'elu lemor. God said all of these words to say. Okay, first of all, at first glance, this is a totally unnecessary sentence. Right? It could have just said, Vayedaber Elokim, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, that God said, I am God. Right? Even more, if you look at the sentence right before this one, is the last sentence of the previous paragraph, it says, Vayered Moshe al Ham, Vayomer Alehem. That Moshe came down from the mountain, Vayomer, and God said to them. God said to them. And then you could just say the Ten Commandments. What does it have to say that Elokim said all these words? So let's look at Rashi. First of all, Ein Elokim Elodin. This shows that God came down with the aspect of severity. God was going to be strict. That's what the Ten Commandments are. Going to be strict. Also, it's another thing that God came down on the mountain. He showed his power. That's also Gvura. Midat Adin. The Cain Omer Elokim lo takalel. Sometimes God is referred to as Elokim. This here it refers also to the judges. The Targumot, the judges, you're not allowed to curse a judge. The judge is sometimes called Elohim, the aspect of judgment. The Targumot Dayana, the Fishiyesh Parshiot with the Torah, there are some paragraphs of the Torah, She'im nish na'asan adam, that if a person does it, he receives a reward. And if not, nothing wrong happens. In other words, there are some things in the Torah that, if you want to call it, they're optional. Right? It's a good thing to do, but you don't have to do it. If you do it, you receive a reward. For instance, a person that has a house, if you have a door in your house, you have to put a mezuzah on you. If you don't have a house, or if you do have a house and the door is not big enough or whatever, then you don't have to put on a mezuzah. So if you don't do the commandment of the mezuzah, you're not punished. If you do, you get a reward. Yochel, you might think, also the Ten Commandments are the same thing. It's an option. Take it or leave it. Talmud Lober Vayedaber Elokim. Says Elokim, it means that if you don't do these commandments, you get punished. 10 Commandments. It's called Hadavarim ha'elu. In other words, instead of saying the 10 Commandments, you might think it's the 10 suggestions. So it's not 10 suggestions, these are commandments, and that God is very, very careful about them, that he wants you to do them. As called Hadavarim ha'elu, God says you should do all of these things. Vayedaber Elokim, as called Hadavarim ha'elu. God said all of these things. Of course God said all these. It's going to be 10 Commandments. Who else said it? Of course God said it. So it says, this comes and tells us, She'omer HaKodesh Baruch Hu, that God said, Asara Devoros. Are you with me in Rashi? Yes? Are you with me in Rashi?
Yeah.
The HaKodesh Baruch Hu, that he said all these 10 Commandments, the Dibur Echad, in one word. God said all the 10 Commandments in one word. You can say that this means several ways. Everything is contained in Anochi. Or you can say that each one is contained in Anochi as all the positive commandments, and Lo Yelecha, that's all the negative commandments. In any case, the whole thing was wrapped up in one. Mashi'iev Sharla Adam Lo Markin, which a human being cannot do this. You can't say one word and that everything is contained in it. If so, if God gave all the commandments at once, then why does it have to say after that, Anochi v'lo yelecha? If God really said everything in just Anochi, the word Anochi, then why does God have to make detail afterwards? What does he have to enumerate afterwards? Shechazar uporet kol dibur v'dibur v'neatzmo. Because that's what he did. God decided he wanted to say the whole thing in a general way, one big commandment, and then afterwards he would detail each and every one of the 10 commandments that was really contained in that first utterance that God made. Lay more, to say, Malamed. This comes to teach us to say. What does it mean to say? To say who? There's no one else to say it to. All the Jewish people were there. All the souls for all generations were there. What does it mean God commanded this to say? Malamed, this teaches us, there's a lot of different explanations that are given, but this is one of them. Malamed, Rashi says, this teaches us, Shahayu onim al hein hein v'alav lav, that on all the positive commandments, the Jews would say yes, and on the negative commandments, the Jews would say no. We will not, don't kill, we will not kill. No. All right. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am God, your God, that took you from Egypt. Rashi. Asher hotzeitichem me'eretz Mitzrayim, that took you out of Egypt. Kadai hi ha'hotza'ah sheta'eh mishubadim li. It was worthwhile for me to take you out of Egypt in order that you would be my servants. Right? God is telling you, I did a big miracle. You saw it. Well, the Torah was just given 50 days after they left Egypt. You all saw it, how I split the sea. You saw how I gave the Egyptians 10 plagues. You all saw how I'm feeding you bread from heaven. All these miracles, it was worthwhile just for this moment. And I'm going to tell you what to do, and you Jewish people are going to be connected to me. Mishubadim li. Tavarach, here is another explanation. What does it mean, I am God, the God that took you out of Egypt? Lafish and Nigla beyond, because God revealed himself to the Jews at the sea. Kegibur, like a tremendous, like a soldier, milchama. Right? At the sea, God fought against the Egyptians. Then, here at Mount Sinai, God appeared to them, so to speak, as a zaken, as an elder, full of mercy. Like it says, Tachat raglav, Masel livnat sapir. Like it says, underneath his feet was like sapphire. That this is what mercy, zuhayata lefana b'shat shibud. This was in the time when the Jews were in Egypt. Now God is appearing to them as a etzem hashamayim latoar. This is referring to what? When God revealed himself to them. So when God was in Egypt, God appeared to them in one way, and now God is appearing to them in another way. And when they were crossing the sea, as another way. God's saying, because I appear in different aspects. Al Tomar, don't say Shtei Rishiyot, don't say that there are two gods. There's one God that takes us out of Egypt, and then there's another God over here that's giving us the Bible. The God that took us out of Egypt, that was fought for us. And now God is appearing to us in a very merciful way. And God is giving us the Torah. Now he's a big judge. Sometimes he's like our father. So they have all these different gods. God says, don't think so. These are all different aspects of me. Anochi, that's the first word. Anochi, I am the God that took you out of Egypt. Interestingly enough, the Rebbe points out, the Rebbe points out that this word Anochi is really not one of the names of God. In fact, it is an Egyptian word. That the Rebbe brings it from a Mishnah, Midrash, that it's really an Egyptian word. Anochi, is an Egyptian word. Says the Rebbe, it's not nice. God gave the 10 Commandments to the Jewish people. This is a uniquely Jewish thing. And God is the God of the Jews. Elokei Yisrael. What does he call himself by an Egyptian name? I is an Egyptian name. He says that's the whole purpose of the Torah, says the Rebbe, is that even in Egypt should be revealed godliness, and even more, only in Egypt, only in the lowest places can God be revealed. In other words, the lowest places in the world, those are tests, difficulties, and that forces us to bring out our essence. So that's what the Anochi is revealed only when a Jew withstands difficulties. Okay, here's another explanation. That's the Rebbe's explanation. Here we have another explanation. Anochi right. Anochi, who I am the God, Asher that Otzeiticha Mitzrayim. I'm reading from Rashi. Ba'alayom, I'm the same God that revealed to you in Egypt and on the sea. Okay, Davar Acher, another interpretation. Why does it say, I am God that took you out of Egypt? Lefishahayu shomim kolos harbe. The Jewish people at Mount Sinai were hearing God speaking from all directions. Like it says, at the kolot. They heard all these different voices of God. God was speaking from all sides. Kolot boim mi arba ruchot min hashamayim min oretz. The voice of God was coming from all four directions, and it was coming also from within them. Every cell, every atom was screaming out that there's a creator from all the sides. If so, they might think, Altam Rishuyas Harbain, there must be a lot of gods. They're all talking at the same time. It must be that there's this big choir of gods that's creating the world. That's like in the Hindus and things like that. They have all these different gods they worship. Lama Omar Lashin Yachid. If so, why does it say, I am God? Okay, so therefore, so you wouldn't think so. You should, I am the one God. I'm one God that took you out of Egypt. That's it. There's no more gods. There's only one. And I have different aspects. Lama Omar Lashin Yachid. Why did it say, I am your God, singular? In English, they don't have that. In Hebrew, they have singular and plural. Why does it say, I am your God, singular? Retain Pitchon Pela Moshe. So that Moshe would be able to have an excuse. Philomed to teach Sangoria, to teach merit, the Maisa Ego, when the Jewish people bow down to the golden calf. What does it mean? Moses would say, what are you angry for, God? God would say, what do you mean what I'm angry for? They're worshiping idols. I told you 10 commandments. They just heard the 10 commandments. Moshe said, one second, but what does it say in the 10 commandments? It's all talking singular, right? That I am God, your God, you shouldn't worship. It's singular, not you all. Right? Elokecha, lo, right? Don't bow down to any other idols. Don't bow down. I thought you were talking just to me. That's what Moshe could say to God. You didn't say, I am God, your God, Elokechem, Elokecha. You shouldn't worship, when it said you shouldn't worship, lo saseh Elokim acharim, you should not, singular. I thought you were talking to me, God. I didn't know you were talking to all the Jewish people. Moshe would be able to say this. Then, in fact, Moshe did say it. Lama Hashem yechareb chabamecha. Why are you so angry? Lo le'em tzivita, you didn't command them not to worship idols. Lo yelachem achirim, that you shouldn't have any other gods except me, except for me alone. You said to me, Lo yelacha Elohim achirim. You should not have lacha to you, not plural. So that would be Moshe's excuse. And God gave him this excuse. God gave him a good argument. Says the Rebbe, God says in the first of the 10 commandments, I am God that took you out of Egypt from the house of slavery, mi beit avadim, mi beit paro, from the house of Paro, shahayatem avodim lo, that you were servants to him. Or maybe you might think that what beit avodim, that God said, I took you out of the house of slaves. In other words, you were slaves of slaves. I took you out of the house of slaves. In other words, they put you into the prisons where the slaves were kept so that you would be slaves to them. Beit Avadim, from the house of slaves. Show you avadim la'avadim, that you were slaves to slaves. Talmud Lomer, it says, "Vayiftacha mi beit avadim," from Paro Melech Mitzrayim. You were slaves to the king. True, you were slaves, but you were first-rate slaves. Omer me'ata avadim lamelech hayu. Now we can say that Jewish people used to be slaves to the king and not slaves to other slaves. Second of the Ten Commandments, Lo yelecha Elohim acherim. You shouldn't have any gods on my face before me. Lama ne'amar. What does it say this? Says Rashi, because it says, Lo saseh lecha. Ein li ela shelo taseh. You should not make for you any other gods. Lo taseh lecha. You should not have any other gods. That's what it says in another place. Don't lo saseh lecha. You shouldn't make any others. So you might think, okay, I can't make any gods, but if they're already made, then maybe I can worship them. Ha'asui kavar, those gods that are already made, you find a little statue of a monkey or a donkey or something that people worship, maybe I can worship that because I didn't make it. Talmud Lower, that's what it says here in this commandment, Lo yiyelecha, they should not be to you. The next commandment is going to say, don't make for yourself. You'll see. Don't make, it says, there should not be to you Elohim acherim, other gods. What does that mean, other gods? Not that there are such things as other gods. Other places it says that there are. Elohim means powers. So sometimes it says, even though these powers are very great, the sun, the moon, these are other powers. Don't make them, they are Elohim, but they're Elohim achirim. They're other powers. You shouldn't worship any other powers except for me, says God. I create all of them. But here Rashi is a little bit different. He says that these are not powers at all. Eino Elohim, they're not really any God, they're not godly. Ela achirim, they are others. Assume other people made them gods on them. Right? You look at the sun and the moon, and you start to pray to the sun and the moon. Right? The sun is God, worship of God's the sun is so wonderful, gives light down, gives power, gives life. You know what? I'll start asking the sun to do me favors. Well, this is forbidden. This is what's called idolatry. And interesting enough, God makes it that sometimes it works. If it didn't work, nobody would do it. But in fact, the sun and the moon and the stars and these things, they don't have free will. They can't answer your prayers. They're all just, he says, hatchets in the hand of the wood chopper. They only do what God wants. Why does God make it that if a person prays to idolatry, it works? You see how many churches there are, how many powerful that all this idolatry is. Why? That's God's business. Why he does it, we don't know. But God does it. So it says these are other gods. It's not proper to say that there are other gods except for me. God says there are other gods, but I don't want you to worship them. That we can't say. Why? Because it is a disgrace to God to call these powers, the sun, the moon, etc., the power of victory, the power, to call them gods. And we know that the Greeks and the Romans, they had their gods in this. There's some people even that say that it's forbidden to call the planets by their names. They call the planets by their names. Because all these names are names of what, I guess, Roman gods that they used to have. So it's a question. I mean, I've never really heard people hold themselves back from it, but there's a good point to you can call it the names that are in the Torah, right? What is it? Venus is called Noga, and Jupiter is called Chesed, and Saturn is called Shabtai, and Mars is called Madim. You can use those. Okay, I guess the people won't know what you're talking about if you talk about that. But nevertheless, the Romans and the Greeks had a lot of gods, and they had temples that they made to these gods. Says the Rebbe, in the end, don't think these are gods at all. There's only one God. And all these are different powers. Davar acher, another. Elohim acherim sheim acherim lo'ovdeim. That they turn their backs on those who worship them. So akim aleim ve'eno onim osam. You can cry to them and they do not answer. Vedoma ke'ilu and they make themselves Elohim acherim. They are other. They are separate from people. She'enu makiro ba'olam. They don't know him. These other powers don't know you at all. They don't recognize your prayers. Al Panai says there shouldn't be any other gods on my face. What does it mean on my face? God says all the time that I exist, you should not have any other worship, any other powers. In other words, God is infinite. So it's another way of saying that forever you should never worship any other powers except for me. Okay, this is really part of this commandment. It's part of the same commandment. Lo ta'aseh lecha pesel, don't make a statue called tamuna, or a picture of anything in the heaven above, anything on the earth below, which is anything which is in the earth. Don't bow down to them. Don't serve them, because I am God and I am a generous God. Tokein avon avos al banim, that I will even visit the sins of the fathers on the sons, if they repeat what the fathers did, to the third and the fourth generation, to those who hate me. But I will do kindness to the 1,000th generation, to those who love me and do my commandments. All of that is part of the second commandment. Let's just do quickly the rest of them, because I see we're running out of time. Tomorrow, we'll only learn Chassidut in the morning. We'll learn Chassidut, and we'll learn the Chassidut in the morning, and that's it. And the next classes will resume on Sunday. We'll have regular classes. The third of the 10 commandments, Lo sisa et shem Hashem Elokecha l'shava, don't take my name in vain. In other words, don't just say the name of God. Don't say, oh God, or something. Shouldn't do it. Because I will not find innocent a person who takes my name in vain. And this is really also relevant to the non-Jews also. The non-Jews, those are 2 of the 7 Noahide commandments. Not to worship idols and not to use God's name in vain. Okay, that's the third. Here's the fourth of the 10 commandments. Zachor et Yom HaShabbat. Remember the day of Shabbat, the Kadsha. Sheshet Yamim, 6 days you should work and do all of your work. On the 7th day, don't do any work. You and your son, your daughter, your servant, your maidservant, your animal, gircha. Gircha means the non-Jew that accepts on himself the 7 Noahide commandments is not allowed to do work for you. He can do for himself, but he can't do for you work. Asher bisharecha. Why? Because 6 days God made the heavens and the earth. And the second time when God repeats this, when God repeats the 10 commandments in Parshat Va'et Hanan, and right before Egypt, right before Moshe goes into the land of Israel, so he repeats the 10 commandments. And there he repeats it word for word, but he repeats it differently. One big difference is over here it says, remember the day of Shabbat, because God created the world in 6 days. And over there it says, keep the day of Shabbat, Shamar et Yom HaShabbat, because God took us out of Egypt. And that's why it says, Shomer v'zocher b'dibur echad. All the Jewish people heard this, the whole thing, all the 10 commandments, both versions they heard at one time. Shesh Yamim Asas Hashem, in 6 days God made the heavens and the earth and the sea and everything in it, and he rested on the 7th day. Therefore, you should do the same thing. The 5th of the 10 commandments, honor your mother and father. It says the Shabbos comes before honoring your mother and father, to tell you if your mother and father tell you not to keep Shabbat, you don't have to listen to them. Honor your mother and father in order that you will have long life on the land that God gave to you. Those, essentially, the first 5 commandments are between man and God. Honoring your mother and father means that you should give honor to what is previous to you. So that's honoring God eventually. Now we have between man and man. The last 5, don't kill, don't take someone else's wife, tinaf, lo Gnov, don't steal people. This is referring to kidnapping. The commandment not to steal money is another place in the Torah. Lo taneh l'reacha ad shaker. Don't give false evidence. And finally, the fifth, do not desire what your friend has. Don't desire, lust after things that aren't yours. Your friend's wife, his servant, his maidservant, his ox, his donkey, and anything that your friend has. Why it has to say all this? And this is what it talks about in the Talmud. That is the 10 Commandments in a very, very short, abbreviated way. I advise you to look into the Rashi and get more informed. Very interesting. Why God picked out particularly these things to say.